Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your MC for the next portion of our program, Cool Startups with Bob Sanguedolce.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. We are competing with lunch, and that is one of the biggest mistakes you can make in the world of presentations. I also was like, we should be able to bring food in here and just actually put out a buffet and maybe an open bar, and we'd see how that brought people in. I'm still thinking the open bar might work, so I've got a couple of bottles in the car. I'm going to be bringing those in. And karaoke. So, actually, well, okay, I'm hearing some folks tell me that the announcements weren't appearing in the lunchroom. I'm going to work on Patty on that one. In the meantime, we've got a great program here today. We've got 4 cool companies that are presenting. They are later stage companies, so they're a little bit further along in the process. And I think you're going to see that they're all working very hard to change the world of financial services. Our first company that's up is Altia Systems. They're transforming how people see and connect electronically. And I don't know if anyone's seen their demo out in the lobby, but it is really quite cool, not to overuse our title. But one of the things that really struck me was how much Altia Systems looked like a video version of Moore's Law. That I am old enough to remember buying PictureTel systems for teleconferencing back in the 90s at outrageous prices. We had to set up the room just right, and you still got tons of pixelation. Now, beautiful, unbelievable images, computer-controlled, 4K quality, really great stuff, with lots of awards to brag about. To do some of that bragging, I'm going to turn it over to Aurangzeb Khan, their CEO.
I can program a computer, choose the perfect time. If you've got the inclination,
Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate your interest. I'm Aurangzeb with Altia Systems. Our product is called Panicast. Panicast is a new way of creating video. And the core idea of the product is to bring you a visual experience that's a lot like how you see the world with your own eyes. Let's see here. OK, here we go. We were recently at a show in Las Vegas at Infocom. Had a great show. And if we were connecting with you in this room to that show, that's the kind of view you would get. The device we have built creates a 180-degree wide, 54-degree tall field of view from a very small footprint. And it's at panoramic 4K quality, so you're seeing 4K pixel density. It's a way for anybody working with remote teams to have a seat at that table virtually. Allows people to engage much more fully. And of course, as much as it applies to the financial industry, it applies to many other industries. We've been shipping the product since last September and have now about 250 customers worldwide in 27 countries. Because at the core of all business is collaboration. It's people working together. And as the digital transformation of the enterprise is going on, and then particularly as the millennial workforce is growing in these companies, people need better tools to work than just the basic audio teleconference call. The step up from that has been web-based conferencing with the built-in webcams for your Macs and PCs. And those are good one-on-one, but not really good to engage teams more fully. We have customers like GoDaddy who are showing a 4 times increase in video-based meetings. They have more than 120 locations worldwide in 4 countries. And they're using about 100,000 minutes of video a week. So it's become a very mainstream part of their culture and how they do work. Bottom line, it lets them achieve better business outcomes faster. The meetings are shorter, more effective. People feel they've been heard. All the data is on the table. And they get to good decision points. This is a world's first panoramic 4K plug-and-play USB camera system. There are 3 miniaturized video cameras in this device. It's outside. Actually, there are 2 of them in the front here. It's about half the size of an iPhone 6 Plus. There are 9 processors in the device. There are 3 imagers and 3 ISPs, 3 individualized video cameras, and then our own computer vision algorithms implemented in the FPGA on board. Also a USB SoC and dual microphones and an audio beamforming SoC. And the whole idea of doing all of that is to transform the view you get from video cameras. For more than 150 years, video cameras, still cameras have brought you a fairly narrow field of view, about 80 degrees diagonal field of view. By doing this, we can create any sized video field and do it extremely fast. We do all our stitching using a new generation of computer vision algorithms we've developed on board. it's done within 5 milliseconds. And so to the human eye, anything within a few hundred milliseconds feels imperceptibly fast. We also project all the video to a rendered cylindrical surface. It's all done mathematically, again, using computer vision processing inside the device. And as we develop new imaging science, we can continue to improve and upgrade the experience that our customers get. Intel Capital is one of our lead investors. We've been showing at a number of events with them. I've actually been traveling a fair bit around the world. And we're getting some great response from folks who are coming to see this technology firsthand and finding new uses for it. And I'll tell you about some of the uses. To give you an idea of how the technology works, the pictures on the top are 3 still frames from the 3 cameras. Adjacent cameras have about a 25% overlap in the pixels in between them. And we use that overlap to apply an algorithm that looks at the bits coming in and in real time, on a frame-by-frame basis, decides which pixels to pick from which side to create the rendered cylindrical surface. A little bit later in time, you'll see the picture at the bottom. And again, I'd love for you to come by and visit us. We're outside, projecting this room outside, as well as have a separate demo area set up. We process on the order of 300 million pixels every second to create this video frame. And the technology is scalable for AR and VR and other applications. It's also a very light device. It's 125 grams. It will come down in size even more, and it will keep going up in resolution and potentially larger fields of view. When we launched the product, Robert Scoble did a 20-minute posting about us on Facebook. He had used the 6 GoPro cameras mounted in front of him at Coachella and shot some video. And then it took him about 90 minutes of post-processing that video to generate the file that he could upload and that people could view on their head-mounted displays. So he was quite amazed that we could do all of that within 5 milliseconds. And made that posting based on the fact that it would have a huge impact on this new era of visual experience. Cisco, Intel, others have said that more than 70% of compute and data traffic going forward will be about video. And Facebook said recently that in 5 years, they believe all their inputs and outputs will be video-based, because it's just the way people like to engage and communicate. And so for that reason, being able to drive this innovation creates a huge opportunity for us. We're going to market right now primarily for unified communications. That's letting people collaborate together. Think about your coworkers, your daily workday. How many times you work with another team, some other location. It could be in the same city. It could be half a world away. There are so many companies where, because of the way we work today in a distributed environment, your colleagues and your daily work partners are not in the same building as you. In those situations, you can add this device as a very simple plug and play. We do all the heavy lifting inside the device so that when you plug it into your Mac or PC, it shows up as a new camera system, a new kind of a super webcam, and allows you to show that full expanse, or through an app we provide, pick the field of view that you would like to share. Sometimes 180 may be more than you need. You may need enough for 2 people or 3 people or 5 people. Or you may want to zoom in on a whiteboard. It enables you all of those flexibilities. In addition, we provide a software as a service platform where we have an MCU in the cloud or on premises. And the unique value proposition with this is that it gives everybody fully personal control over their experience. So if you're used to traditional video conferencing, either you'll have a fixed view camera or you'll have a motorized camera. And in a motorized camera, one person can drive that at one time. But because we see 180 degrees all at once, we can virtualize that through the software and give each person their own canvas and allow simultaneously multiple people to get different views from the same device. Since there are no moving parts, as you look around, as you pan and zoom using multi-touch gestures, it feels very intuitive and it's instantly responsive because all the data is taken through the device, through our cloud service, to your iPhone or Android device or tablet. And you're interacting with it locally to yourself in your own device. We can bring you a canvas with up to 5 different devices brought in. And all of this is done over the top with very efficient bandwidth utilization. We look at bandwidth back pressure every 100 milliseconds and adjust the frame rate and the resolution so that you have a great experience. Huddle rooms are a new growth category. It's a greenfield opportunity. There are various estimates that these are between 20 million and 50 million such locations in existing companies worldwide. And we are a very good fit for this particular market segment because, you know, for one thing, in a huddle room, physically they're small. They're about 6 feet by 8 feet, sometimes a little bigger, sometimes a little smaller. You don't have the ability to push the camera very far back to expand its field of view, which is what's traditionally done in big conference rooms or big collaboration spaces. So as a result, you can have the device very close to you, as close as 3 feet, and see the whole space. You can use it in an on-the-go model, shown in the middle left, or with a NUC, next unit of computing, a small form factor PC, or actually even smaller, the Compute Stick, which is a very small $300 device, and use it to drive 1 or 2 or 3 displays and create a telepresence-like experience. And you know, it works with all these available services. We were the Gartner Cool Vendor 2015. Zoom recognized the same way by Gartner in 2014. And a lot of companies are using their software through the cloud in our device as a best-in-class scalable solution. We work with all the other services, and we have a full service integration with Intel Unite and with Microsoft Skype for Business. We can also be added just as a simple HDMI device to your traditional video conferencing equipment. So these are some of the ways people are using it. You can have a dual setup and really, you know, show off a whole auditorium like this. We'll show you an example of this room momentarily. You can use it as a mobile device, as a huddle room setup, and of course with our service with Skype for Business and Intel Unite. So a few customers that we've been working with. GoDaddy actually is one of the first customers that is deployed at scale. They are using Zoom video conferencing software. You know, they're in 4 countries with about 120 locations in daily active use. And their estimates are about 100,000 minutes of usage a week. They had earlier purchased motorized cameras, quite high-end equipment and so on. And actually, the goal for the project was not based on price, but on user preference and user utility. The setup is very simple. That's a large display with a small device attached below. That's our device. And Jolene was the director driving this project at GoDaddy. Leica Geosystems in Switzerland purchased the device. They work in 120 countries. They are the world's leader in geodetic and surveying equipment. And they sent us that feedback unsolicited. So we're actually going to do a little bit of a write-up about this and be publishing that story in the next few weeks. This is an example of a university. Western Sydney University has about 30 large auditoriums with about 300 seats. They used one device to show off the whole classroom and another device sort of looking on the stage, as I am here. So if you're a remote student, not physically present in that classroom, you have a pretty good sense of what's going on in that space. You know, you can look at the students, how engaged they are, what the body language in the room is, and also what the professor is trying to show. Beyond that, they have several hundred rooms, which are typical classrooms with about 50 to 60 people. And as education is becoming much more online, a lot of universities are starting to use this technology for that purpose. These are some very typical setup examples from Sandhill Road, usage in a boardroom setup and also in huddle room kinds of setups. We provide an electronic pan, tilt, and zoom app so that you can decide if you don't need the full field of view, what section of that view is relevant to you. There are presets available, so you could, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you could label them, name them, change them, and it lets people create the perspective that they want to share with the audience. We had a company in New Jersey use this to produce high school graduation. So imagine a hall full of students. Student walks up to receive the diploma, and there's faculty on the one side. Previously, they would use a cameraman physically moving a large camera to do all of that. With this app and our device, and actually they wrote a crossfader, they were able to replace all of that with just this one device and a person driving a Mac. I'd like to show you an example of the experience. This is the personal panoramic experience running on a tablet. Intel views this as a killer experience, and so they produced a video clip, typical business collaboration session, 2 groups talking to each other. The lady brings up the Panicast experience on her tablet, sits down, she sees the whole room. zooms in to engage with one colleague, and then sort of pans over to see what's on the whiteboard. Something very simple, something where your touch can express your intent in real time, and you saw that it was a very fluid experience. And you're welcome to come outside and check this out. I'm going to ask the folks there to switch the view from this to the room itself. So this is you live looking back at yourselves. There are two devices in the front, and one of them is pointed back at the room. So if you were not here, you were in wherever you normally are, that's the experience you would receive. Something pretty compelling and pretty comprehensive and feels normal to most folks. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. We have time for a question or two. Anyone in the audience? Well, I have one. In terms of the speed to implement, how long do you see customers typically taking to get a station up and running?
Yeah, to use it as a personal device is effectively instantaneous, right? I mean, you unbox it, plug it in, and you're good to go. It doesn't require any software or any installation. Whatever service you use, you select it in that service. For huddle rooms, typically people will put up a pair of screens, and they'll install a NOC or a compute stick. So that can take a day or so to set up. So fairly lightweight, considering if you remember the kind of products you mentioned early on in the industry.
It really is a great system. You want to check it out. Again, I'm enough of a fossil to remember PictureTel and desperately trying to get a 256K data line to try to send video images over. And of course, everything was endlessly pixelated. People thought that was a great advance at the time. It just goes to show how quickly things have changed and what kind of technology is available.
Yes, and I will say, people find that when you connect with a room full of people and you can see them and you can kind of make that human connection, it's a much better experience. And so that's really what's driving a lot of this innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, next up, we've got Telestax. Telestax is working on connection-enabled business processes, which is just 4 great words together. I wish I'd come up with that for my business. But what that really means is they're integrating communication into multiple parts of the business process. One of the great things about the company is that it's currently being used by more than 80% of Tier 1 telecoms, so we're all probably using it and not realizing it. To tell us more about Telestax, please join me in welcoming Kevin Nethercott, and he's Telestax's Vice President of Business Development.
All right. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate those that are here skipping dessert to join us, and hopefully we can spend some good time here together. So who here works with customers? Do you have customers? We only have 5 people that have customers? All right. So who here would like to have a better customer experience for your customers, right? We want to have happy customers. So you may be wondering what's a telecom company doing at a banking conference like this. What we're finding is that we need to offer better customer care. We need to enable processes that help facilitate that. So I want to share a little bit about Telestax, and then I'll share a few use cases where we're actually being implemented in the financial sector. So Telestax, we were founded in 2011, though it's a little bit of an interesting story. We run the largest open source community in the telecommunications space. We have over 10,000 active participants in our community. And so that actually started about 10 or 12 years ago with JBoss and then Red Hat, and then the Telestax team actually spun out of Red Hat about 4 or 5 years ago. So we are a young company, but our technology has a very broad base. As I mentioned, we have that large community. There's over 6 million lines of code in our platform. So we run everything in the carriers from the old legacy SS7 networks up through SIP, some technical terms here, and we now have the leading WebRTC platform that's out there as well. So we're able to kind of work all the way through the stack with whatever type of use case that you're interested in running. So what that enables, and this is the key element as you think about your business, your customers, your internal communications, and all of the processes that run within and between those points, this is what we're able to help you do. So we can run all of the voice protocols that you'd like. So we can integrate with your legacy PBX, or we can connect directly out to the internet through a voice over IP network. So it's very cost effective there. You can run video through our WebRTC client. And so you're able to do some really innovative types of things, both on the desktop as well in the mobile space. Who's here? Are you familiar with WebRTC? Is that a term? Great, okay. So you know what I'm talking about there. We also are integrated with, we have our own SMS gateway. So that enables all of the SMS texting capabilities that are out there that you can drive that. So this then also can be used as a real-time engine inside IoT with machine-to-machine type of signaling. So we sit in the middle of all of these processes, communications that are going on, and we support that. As he mentioned, you're probably using us and don't even know it. These are some of the customers that are using our technology and making your life hopefully a little bit easier. There's some good names up there. Where I really wanted to focus, though, is on this term communication-enabled business processes. As we look at the businesses that we're in and the different communications that need to take place, there are natural handoff points where we want to bring a human or a different process into the mix. And so through our platform, we're able to connect to all of these third-party systems through just a simple RESTful API or a simple XML script. And so what we're doing is we're taking all of the complication of the telecom network that's always been kind of scary and difficult, hard and expensive, and opening that up to any web developer. So now it's as simple as building a web page and making a simple API call, and you can now launch a phone call, a video session, SMS text. So now you can start to see how on your web development side that we can integrate into that process. So why would you do it? So this is some interesting data that we've recently come across, how our customers are wanting to engage with us as an enterprise. We're seeing more and more people move away from the home telephone. So 38% are moving away from there to where now we're looking at SMS, mobile, website, browsers, those types of interactions. So as we look at how you're engaging with your customers, your clients, your partners, even your internal staff and teams, this is critical in how we take the old school and move it into these environments so that customer becomes happier. So here's a couple of use cases to share with you. So this is called Mayday. I don't know, you may have seen something similar on Amazon. But basically, with one click of a button, you're able to connect instantaneously with someone on the other side through a video conference. With WebRTC, you can also share documents. You can annotate on the other side. You can do co-browsing. So you can imagine now in a banking situation where we're getting more and more distributed mobile, home banking, this can now give you a face-to-face experience. So it's not only just a better user experience, but it's also more secure. So you're able to accomplish two things through this type of an application. Here with LiveBank, one of our use cases that's running this on our platform, is that they're using this in some high-end banking situations. So they're able to engage, maybe it's a transaction with an investment banker. This can replicate that face-to-face experience. You can share paperwork. You can do a lot of proactive things there that speed up the process, make it more secure, and a lot easier for the customer. Someone was actually telling me today that they lost their credit cards. So they had to go into the branch. So that travel time, sitting there, getting it done, it was probably an hour or 2-hour experience. Through apps like this, or something as simple as two-factor authentication, you could have accomplished that in probably a minute or 2. Who's the happier customer? Someone that had to go into the branch, or someone that received a text after logging into the website to have that secure session with their banker? So using things like two-factor authentication, you wouldn't think of that as telecom, but who's had to reset their Google password recently? That's two-factor authentication. So you log in, that proves who you are, an SMS text comes to something you have, and so that gives you that two-factor of authentication at a very simple user experience. So summarizing, what we're trying to accomplish together is delivering a superior customer experience by integrating this technology into your environment. So we're taking what you do and adding this to it. It enhances the business agility, because now you can interact with a lot of different systems. You can imagine Salesforce.com or your CRM system being connected to this. You got to click the call, screen pops. There's all of these interesting use cases by which we can make things faster and cheaper and better for the customer. And at the end of the day, that increases the personal productivity that we're all looking for within our organizations. So I look forward to understanding some of your use cases. We're out here at the table, and we can chat a little bit how we might be able to voice enable what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions? Kevin, question for you is,
Yes.
Where do you see this going? What's kind of the next thing coming, the next channel that you see that this might be going down?
So I think there's a couple of areas, right? So one is better integration through WebRTC within our current environment. So that simplifies everything because that goes easier through firewalls. You have end-to-end ubiquitous connectivity. And so there's a lot of interesting use cases on that side of things. I think the other thing that's really interesting is we're starting to see companies using some of the traditional telecom signaling like SIP as an IoT machine-to-machine type of process. And so there's some really interesting use cases coming out in IoT now where it's machine-to-machine, but then you need something, you can also then place a call or reach somebody in real time. So there's a couple of really scalable, interesting use cases that are coming out of this.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
All right, no problem.
Coming up next, as we move through our cool companies, Neva is providing service intelligence for enterprise IT. In a past life, I was the CIO of eBay, and I can tell you it is an incredible challenge keeping IT people busy fixing all the things everybody wants fixed. Neva's a late-stage company going live this fall, and I'm going to turn it over to Kamesh Ragavendra to tell us all about it.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks so much for joining us in this lunch hour. So Neva actually means nervous system in Swahili. And much like how your nervous system connects your wisdom, knowledge, and active thoughts to your sensory and motory perceptions, Neva aims to connect your back office operations in your enterprise and curates, consolidates, and creates knowledge and intelligence from that and empowers your front office operators. And that's the origin behind the choice of the word Neva for our product. Let me get this right. Yep, there you go. So the definition of back office has radically changed, especially over the last decade, especially because of cloud computing and software as a service. So the line between what is inside your enterprise and what is outside your enterprise is extremely blurred. Your business units are in charge of most of the IT decisions made in the enterprise. And therefore, signing up for new cloud services is really not centralized, the whole decision-making and the process around that. And when you sign up for a Salesforce.com or a Workday or an Expensify or any of these cloud services, you're literally fragmenting what used to be a more centralized back-office operations for your enterprise. And while the services get fragmented, also the knowledge and the context created in those back-office operations also get equally fragmented, which in turn poses a lot of challenges for your front-office operators. It could be service operators, customer support operators, who really have to scrounge around and figure out the right knowledge in the context of the incidents being reported. And this, together with the normal people churn in the front desk operations, leads to a lot of inefficiencies in decision making, especially in your front offices. And finally, the definition of front office itself is getting heavily disrupted, especially with the proliferation of chatbots and messaging-driven front office operations. When your Uber car is delayed, you don't call Uber, you chat with Uber. And Uber deploys a combination of people and chatbots to respond to you when you have delays and incidents in consuming Uber service. And therefore, you can see an entire supply chain of service and support management getting disrupted, driven by cloud computing, chatbots, and the nature of front desk operations in general. Oops, I think it's going back. Sorry about this. Yeah, there you go. So in this context, what Neva tries to achieve is create this self-curated consolidation of knowledge from across all your fragmented back-office channels, which means kind of mining and creating knowledge out of API documentations, user manuals, release documentations from various back-end services that your enterprise is consuming, and also monitoring the interactions between your end users and your back-end service providers, and organizing the knowledge of all your back-end operations in the context of how they've been used by your own end users. And this is what we do in the self-curated knowledge graph. We have then gone ahead and built a cognitive intelligence engine, which acts as a decision engine, which makes use of this back-end knowledge graph and enables the front office operators to deliver the right decisions to the right users in the context of the incidents being reported in the front office. And especially in this decision-making engine, we have derived a lot of value from advancements in artificial intelligence and machine learning, especially constructs like transferred learning, where models developed in a different context can be moved to new contexts by kind of manipulating the factors that have gone into the model building and model training in general. And therefore, with applications of very cutting-edge artificial intelligence, we are able to derive kind of contextual recommendations for the front office operators to push to the end users. And again, we support a very omni-channel experience in the front office. We can not only assist existing service and support desk operators, but also back-end chatbots. And especially with the rollout of Windows 10 next year, there's going to be chatbots like Siri and Cortana across a large swath of enterprise users. And therefore, we believe that the chatbots are going to significantly disrupt the constitution and operations of front office across a wide segment of enterprises, including financial services. So we have launched Neva as a kind of an application on top of an existing service management workflow engine, and our kind of launch partner is ServiceNow, and we are progressing in our roadmap to support other service workflow engines going ahead in the future, especially also on the customer support side like Zendesk and Freshdesk. The way Neva works is the knowledge graph plugs into the unstructured and structured sources of knowledge from outside and inside of the enterprise, and organizes that based on the incident history, the way users have interacted with those services in the past, and then rolls out the decision engine, which is the cognitive intelligence, artificial intelligence-driven engine that I was describing before, that starts engaging with active user context, which is incidents that are live, problems that are live, conversations that the front desk is having with the end users on a live basis, and then pushes service intelligence as a feed across multiple user channels. It can be voice, it can be text, it can be chatbots to the end users who are consuming this. And as you can see, we support a variety of actors as end users. It could be actual end users, like a person using an Uber app. It could be a community, like a developer community, where people come together, ask questions, post questions, and expect resolution of their challenges. It could also be a support or service agent who is engaging with an end user over phone or chat. And therefore, we expect this omni-channel nature of front office operations to proliferate across new channels, such as chatbots going ahead. And therefore, initially in the ServiceNow context, because we are looking at very specific IT service management, which is kind of the main use case for ServiceNow, we deliver incident classification, best solution recommendation, kind of integration across new channels that ServiceNow does not support on its own, as well as routing incidents to the right service and support executive. So this is Neva, and we look forward to collaborating with customers in a variety of verticals who have this problem of front office and back office not going hand in hand, and new disruptions kind of affecting the end customer experience. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kamesh. Any questions? Here we go. This is how I get in shape.
So what technology do you use for capturing and storing knowledge graph?
So we have a natural language understanding engine. So we do the normal NLP process, like topic modeling, lemmatization, and creating a corpus of knowledge. And then on top of that, we deploy deep learning. Especially, we have a recurring neural network that drives the natural language understanding. There are some ontologies we usually feed in, and then the ontology grows through the deep learning that we have set up in the decision engine. So that's kind of a picture of the technologies involved in the creation of the knowledge graph.
So do you have your own graph DB? Or
Yes. So we have forked version of OrientDB, but yeah, we had to develop quite a bit of querying capabilities because OrientDB's interface wasn't good enough for our use case.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask, what do you use for visualization, where like users are actually querying and getting the answers back?
So currently, we plug into the existing user interfaces, especially Slack and the community, which is Jive type of user interface, as well as ServiceNow's web user interface, which is a JavaScript type of interface. We do have our own kind of Angular and Node-based UI, which we usually use for demo purposes. But so far, the initial batch of customers are consuming this through Slack, Jive, and ServiceNow interfaces.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Kamesh.
Thanks a lot, Bob. Thanks, guys.
We've got our final presentation ready. And so with that, please welcome from Ampool. Ampool is democratizing fast analytics. And I asked Milind here, their CEO, can you explain that to me so I can explain it to the audience? He goes, well, that's pretty much the presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to him. So please join me in welcoming Milind BHANDRAKAR.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Okay. Hi, I'm Milind BHANDRAKAR, and I'll be talking about Ampool. Ampool is almost a year old, in fact, about exactly the year old. We started in 2015. So let me introduce what we are trying to, what the problem is that we are trying to solve. Okay. So since you are at a fintech conference, you basically have seen this, right? This is a Wells Fargo web page that is overwritten with all the startups and all the new fintech companies that are going to challenge or that are basically taking various aspects of Wells Fargo and re-implementing them in their startups, right? So when I saw this in November of 2015, I basically said, wait a minute, I have seen this somewhere before. This phenomenon, I have basically seen this before. So where did I see this? Well, there's a cylinder company up on the north of here, or somewhere west of here, right? For the last 30 years, they have been the dominant database company in the world, right? Fast forward 15 years, this is basically the database landscape today, right? Anything and everything that this cylinder company is not good at is basically being attacked by startups, by even established companies and open source technologies that have been coming up and taking over market share slowly but steadily, right, from that cylinder company. This is just the databases, right? We have basically seen over the last 10 years an emergence of the entire big data ecosystem that has been created. And this is what it looks like in 2016, right? There hasn't been any notion of consolidation among all these things, at least so far, right? Might happen later, not right now, right? So why did this happen? What changed in order to enable all these companies and all these new data systems to take over what used to be the tried and tested relational database platform, okay? So some of the things that happened in the last 15 years is basically you've seen the emergence of Web 2.0, Ajax, and all these things, very responsive web applications. We have seen mobile take off, smartphones since 2007. We have seen social networks take off since 2003, 2004. We have seen the new industrial IoT or even the sensor-based platforms that have popped up. So really the consumption models have changed, right? And as a result, we have seen this whole notion of big data pop up, right? An important thing that happened in the last 15 years is open source became credible challenger to the proprietary enterprise software, right? Those are all the change factors that happened in 15 years, and that it has created a perfect storm of disruption, right? The biggest disruption so far, though, is what we now call as the cloud computing. Since 2003, when Amazon AWS S3 was launched, we've basically seen explosion, and even traditional customers, enterprise customers, are now moving to the cloud because cloud does things better at scale than they could ever do in-house, right? So this is a perfect storm that has been created, right? So the four horsemen of this era, if you remember 90s, the four horsemen were probably somewhere on Wall Street, or around Wall Street or New Jersey, somewhere like that. The four horsemen of this new era of technology are all in, well, Silicon Valley and one in Seattle, right? Or two in Seattle and two in Silicon Valley. These are the companies that are directing where the technology is going, right? In addition to the cloud computing and all these different factors that we basically saw earlier, we've basically seen tremendous technology shifts have occurred in the last few years, in particular on the infrastructure side. I've seen CPUs doing massively parallel processing with vectorizations and stuff like that. You have seen ultra-high-speed networking emerge. 100 gigabits per second is not too far away, commodity 100 gigabits per second. We have seen storage class memory and flash basically changing the entire data infrastructure landscape, right? On the software side itself, we basically are now, the default infrastructure is on-demand scale-out infrastructure, right? What we call as the cloud. Distributed computing frameworks have emerged over the last 10 years, and they have become the mainstay of enterprise technology. The new things that we are basically seeing, containers. Somebody was there at DockerCon recently. We basically see, hey, containers is the next best thing since sliced bread. And really what the architecture itself has shifted to more microservices-based architecture rather than vertical architectures, right? And I would argue that the most important thing in the last 10 years that basically has caught people's attention is the ubiquitous nature of data, right? Data is now being treated as currency. People call it the new oil, but well, difficult to extract from like tar sands, right? But data is the new currency. That's basically what has come out to be. If you look at all the 300 different fintech companies that are targeting Wells Fargo, as I said in the initial slides, one thing that is common to them, well, actually there are two things in common to them. One is none of them actually has Oracle as the primary platform, data platform. The second thing is that all of them understand the value of data and the hyper-personalization that can be created for their users based on that data, right? So the data, the whole notion of data lake has emerged, and basically people will say, hey, gather all the data, keep it in this data lake, and the magic will happen. Well, we know magic won't happen that way, right? The magic happens because of analytics. Analytics is a process of creating context from the data, right? And as you know about the data, and this is a very well-known fact for the last 30 years or so, as the data gets older, the business value generated from that data actually goes down rapidly, okay? So what does it mean? Well, the analytics which creates the context, which basically means that the real-time context that you have generated from the recent data is much, much more important than the historical context, right? And as a result, I mean, I'm not the only one who is saying this, 73% of organizations are either acquiring or investing in or expanding their current usage of real-time analytics, okay? So what is their goal? The goal really for all these organizations is to create applications powered by closed-loop analytics. What do I mean by closed-loop analytics? This is what Ampool's vision is, right? You basically have on the left side rapid development of applications, self-tuning applications, etc. Applications are generating a lot of data exhaust. On the right-hand side, although, our data analytics process has been broken by design. It has been split into slow silos, and basically just integrating all of that and feeding the analytics results back into the applications is a major challenge, right? So this is where Ampool, this is the problem that Ampool intends to solve. Using all the modern hardware technologies, such as storage class memory, such as ubiquitous availability of huge amounts of DRAM, dynamic random access memory across commodity clusters, we pool all of that memory together, and we expose that as a primary storage, not as a caching layer, as a primary storage to all these popular analytics frameworks, right from streaming ingestion, batch-oriented ETL analytics, to BI and reporting tools, and ad hoc queries, and everything else, okay? So we haven't built this from scratch. We started last year based on an open source project called Apache Geode, which used to be called Pivotal Gemfire earlier. Pivotal open source that last year. We started with that. We used that as the building block of our distributed system, added our proprietary additions to that. Hopefully, we'll be able to open source them as well really soon, and made it suitable for analytics, real-time analytics, okay? So that's who we are. We have a booth outside. So Nitin, my head of products, and me, we'll be happy to show you the demo and talk to you about your requirements. Thanks.
Hey, that was really thought-provoking. Any questions? It was too hard. By the way, it was amazing to see the data map of just the web page.
True.
It is amazing how much stuff goes there.
Yeah.
And everybody wants a buck. So really great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Milind. Everyone, thank you for being at this session. We have another session starting, I believe, at 1 in this room for the next keynote. Thank you very much.